One gift that God has given me, the love of books. The golden key that opens an enchanting door to worlds I never knew before. A world of imagination that carried me from pole to pole within a twinkling eye and back again. As a boy, I traveled to places impossible for me to see, and yet my bookshelf made them real to me. The world of my bookshelf, I'll remember it always.
This is The Bookshelf. Adaptations of favorite Christian children's literature. Stories brought to life by The Bookshelf.
The radio stations of the Moody Bible Institute bring you the 14th in a 15-chapter series of The Prairie Princess, created by Margaret Epp and freely adapted for radio by Phyllis Fox. The Prairie Princess is the story of the intense joys, disappointments, and personal spiritual growth of the lives of the Scott family, as told by the younger girl, Sarah Naomi Scott, the Prairie Princess.
Oh, if I could paint a picture of Linda's face. She looked brighter than the brightest star, and her eyes sparkled. Her smile was the biggest I'd ever seen. What a wonderful day it was. Linda becoming a Christian, and then her dad calling from Ottawa to tell her that she would be coming to live there as soon as Aunt Jane was out of the hospital. And then the doctor saying that Linda would be able to walk again. Our prayers were being answered faster than we could say them. I ran out to the fields where the threshing machines were finishing up for the afternoon. Dad and Mr. Slocum were out there working away.
Well there, I thought you wouldn't want to miss a chance to see the threshing machine.
You know I wouldn't, Daddy. Hi, Mr. Slocum.
Hi, Miss Sarah. Looking mighty pretty today.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Daddy, I got something to tell you.
Well, what is it?
Come close.
Oh, secret.
Not really, just something special.
Well, tell me about it.
Linda accepted Jesus Christ as her personal savior.
Oh, when did all this happen?
Well, Herbie brought Susan and Linda out to the fields to keep me company at lunchtime. And we got to talk and, well, Susan led her to the Lord.
Oh, that's mighty wonderful, Princess.
But that's not all.
It isn't?
No, Mr. Bolton called from Ottawa. And as soon as Aunt Jane gets out of the hospital, her and Linda,
You mean she?
Yeah, she and Linda are going to live with him. And there are doctors that say Linda will be able to walk again.
Well, it certainly has been quite a day.
Where's Stuart? I want to tell him.
He said he was going out to the old cabin at Pelican Point.
What for?
I don't know. His work was finished, and he said he wanted to take his lunch and eat out there.
Well, I'm going to find him.
I thought you wanted to watch a thresher.
Oh, no, this is much more important. And it was more important, but not for the reasons I thought. I wanted to tell Stuart about Linda and about her dad, but when I arrived, I stopped short of where Stuart was. He was sitting on a log talking to someone else, someone I had never seen before. They were eating, and Stuart had the picnic basket that he had had the last time in the barn. I walked slowly over to them and waited until I had a chance to cut into their conversation. They were whispering for some reason, and that made me act real quiet. But pretty soon, I just couldn't keep quiet, and... Hi, Stuart.
Sarah, what are you doing here?
Well, Dad said you were walking up to Pelican Point, and I had something to tell you, and well, don't I get introduced?
Introduced?
To your friend.
Yes, Sarah, this is,
Joe English is the name. And you must be Sarah Naomi.
Yes, but how did you know my middle name?
Oh, Stuart's told me lots about you.
He has? Like what?
Well, like your father calls you Princess, and you'd much rather watch the threshing machines than the cows, and you're one of the most generous people around, except when you're mad, and then you get real stubborn.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Did he tell you about Robbie and Kathy?
Yes, he's told me all about your family.
Even our absent loved one?
Sarah.
I'm sorry.
Absent loved one.
It was nothing. I mean, nothing that would mean anything to you.
Why don't you tell me about it?
Joe, she didn't mean anything by it.
It's nothing bad, really. It's just that we have an older brother, and he's not with us. But we know that someday he will be.
How do you know that?
'Cause we've prayed that God will bring him back. just like in the story of the prodigal son. And
I think we better be going home.
But dinner won't be ready.
It's about time we started back. I'll see you tomorrow, Joe.
Why doesn't Mr. English come have dinner with us?
Well, you see, I just purchased this cabin, and there's a lot of work to be done in it.
Maybe Robbie and I can come by and help.
Sarah, let's get going.
Well, I'm very happy to meet you, Mr. English. And Robbie and I can come by when we finished our chores. You'll like Robbie.
Sarah.
I gotta go, but we'll see you again real soon.
It was nice meeting you, Sarah. Goodbye now.
Goodbye. See you later.
You gonna be all right?
Sure, I'll be fine.
See you tomorrow.
All right.
He's real nice, Stu. What you been hiding him for?
Sarah, I want you to listen to me very carefully.
I'm listening.
Can you keep a secret?
You know I can.
I mean from everybody, including Mom and Dad.
From Mom and Dad?
Yes.
What is it, Stu? I knew you must have had some secret. Mr. English is the one you've been taking all the food to, isn't he?
Yes.
But why is he living out in that shack? Why would anyone want to fix that up?
Sarah, his name isn't Joe English.
What do you mean his name isn't Joe English? What reason would he have to tell a fib to me? He doesn't even know me.
Sarah, that's your older brother, Keith.
What? But
He arrived a couple of weeks ago and he's been living in that old cabin.
But he should be home.
Sarah, please. He's here, but he's not home yet.
But how did he get here?
That's a very long story. It has to do with Mr. Slocum.
Mr. Slocum?
That's what I said.
You mean Mr. Slocum knows he's here?
Yes.
But why haven't you told Daddy?
Because Keith asked me not to.
But he seemed happy to see me. I want to go back there.
No, Sarah. He may have seemed glad, but we can't be sure. Keith's gone through a lot, and he's frightened and a little ashamed.
But why should he be ashamed? We all love him.
Love and forgiveness are sometimes very hard to accept.
But
Well, Stuart, Well, hi there, Sarah. What are you doing way out in the woods? Aren't you supposed to be home getting some chow ready for us?
She already knows Mr. Slocum.
Knows what?
I met Mr. English.
You did you? Nice chap.
I mean, I know he's Keith.
Oh, well, that does present a problem.
No, it doesn't. I can keep a secret. But how come you know about it?
I'm the one who convinced Keith to come back.
You did? But how did you know where he was?
Well, that's another story. You see, Sarah, Keith spent a lot of time with me, and, well, I was what you might call a strong influence. I sort of persuaded him to, you might say, find out what the world was all about, you know?
You mean you told him to leave home?
No, that's not what he means. Sarah, I think maybe you're not ready to hear all this.
I'm old enough, Stu. And even though I don't know Keith, I love him. And I want him to come home. Mr. Slocum, please finish what you were going to say.
Well, I didn't tell him to leave home, but I didn't tell him not to. And when he decided, I sort of gave him a neighborly assist.
You mean you helped him leave?
You gotta understand, Sarah. I used to tease Keith a bit about being under your old man's, your father's thumb. I suspected he was having arguments about things. He used to unload pretty freely when he was at our house. So, well, I just sort of, kept the fire stirred up, as you might say.
And he left?
Then that night I came over during the blizzard and couldn't go home, and you asked me to have devotions with you all. And you prayed about, what'd you call him, your absent loved one. Well, my conscience got the better of me, and I up and went to try and persuade him to come back.
You mean you've known where he was all along?
Yes.
Mr. Slocum, how could you...
Sarah, that's enough. Mr. Slocum feels as sorry as he possibly can at this time. Now let's work with what we have. Keith is here and we want to bring him home. Now let's forget about how or why it happened and concentrate on the present.
All right, if you say so.
How did Keith act when he met Sarah, Stu?
Friendly-like. He asked some questions.
Yes?
And then I thought we'd better leave. I don't want Mom and Dad to get suspicious.
Well, I'm going to drop over to see Keith now. I'll get back to you later.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Slocum, don't you really think we ought to tell Mom and Dad?
Not now, Sarah. Later. You trust Stu and me. I promise you we're doing what we know is best.
All right, Mr. Slocum.
We'll see you back at the house.
Fine, Stu.
I don't know if what you're doing is right, Stu.
Sarah, if Mom knew Keith was nearby and didn't want to come home, she'd be all upset.
But maybe she could talk him into coming home.
He only came back because I promised to keep it a secret until he could work out things in his own mind.
What things?
Well, courage, for instance.
He doesn't have to work up any sort of courage. We want him home.
We know that, Sarah. Let's start heading toward the house. He's gone through a lot, Sarah, and it's hard for him to believe that Mom and Dad would forgive him and take him back.
But he knows the story of the prodigal son.
Knowing it and having it a part of your life is two different things. Remember when you just knew about Jesus, but you really didn't know him?
I see what you mean. Well, what are we going to do now?
Just what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. I'll act like nothing is going on.
What do you mean, act like nothing is going on? Dad's been wondering where you've been disappearing to, not to mention the food.
Sarah, if we don't want Keith to run away, you're going to have to help me, and not breathe a word of it to anybody.
Maybe I should go back and tell Keith that I can keep a secret, too.
Not right now. Later. We've got to get to supper.
All right. But you got to promise me one thing.
What's that?
That we'll tell Mom and Dad as soon as we can.
Sarah, I want that more than anything else in the world. I don't like keeping things from Mom and Dad, especially something as important as this.
What on earth? Mr. Slocum, what's the matter? You look as if you've run from the ends of the earth.
I'm sorry I missed dinner. Stuart, I want to see you a minute.
Sure, Mr. Slocum.
Anything wrong?
Nothing to concern yourself with. Stu?
Well, excuse me, folks. Be right back. What is it, Mr. Slocum? Has something happened to Keith?
Read this.
Sorry, pal. I find I can't face it after all. Just born with a yellow streak, I guess. Thanks anyway. It was a good try. And give my love. No, I guess we better skip that. Keith?
He's gone, Stu. And this time I don't know where.
This has been the 14th in a 15-chapter series of The Prairie Princess, created by Margaret Epp and freely adapted for radio by Phyllis Fox. Join us next time as we present the final chapter of The Prairie Princess.
You've been listening to another dramatic adaptation of Christian children's literature, brought to life by the Bookshelf. This has been a radio presentation produced by the Broadcasting Department of the Moody Bible Institute.